Hello and welcome to the Dino Solve for week 23, another 7 curious interesting things I saw last week. As ever, let's crack on. First one is Google's Style Drop. Now you may have seen things like style transfer before, where you take one image and you transfer its style to another. So you may take a Van Gogh and you transfer its style to a picture of your cat. This takes it a step further, which is really quite interesting. So you take the same sort of reference style image on the left hand side, that's what you're seeing, but you can then just use text to describe what you want it to be turned into. So if you take a picture of the Android logo and want it to be turned into an octopus, for instance, it will do that for you. So that's the really big advance in this. Now, as I've said in the side text, is this the end of graphic design? Well, no, not really. When you think about this, you're using a style that you've got to replicate, and that's pretty much like smack bang in the middle of copyright, so that if you are a designer and you have a certain house style, then this might make you a hell of a lot faster, but also, you know, it might just be really good for giving I don't know, ideas of styles that you could then turn your brand into. If you use somebody else's style, then as I've said, that is copyright. But there you go. That is Google Style Drop. Paragraphica. I should have read that before I actually tried to say it. This is brilliant. So this is Bjorn Carmen, who has demonstrated this kind of camera that isn't really a camera. So that little red thing on the front is not real at all. It's just there for show. So what this is doing is it's using some very basic inputs into an image generator AI. So you, for instance, take me a photo of something, tell me what the weather is, where it is, how hot it is, what the time of the day it is, and if there's anything nearby that you are telling it you're taking a picture of. And as you can see on the screen there, an evening photo taken at Groen de blah, blah, blah. Weather is clouds, temperature is 16 degrees, blah, blah, blah. All of that good stuff. And all it does is it just takes all that information and then generates an image that it thinks you might be seeing in front of you. So the camera does not actually have any lenses in it, it doesn't even know, but you're just stood in the middle of nowhere, you describe what might be in front of you, and it generates an image. Now, clearly what you're seeing as a demo is probably a little bit hoodwinked, and I'd suggest that little cable at the bottom of there whizzing out to the right is going somewhere far more impressive than this little bit of kit, but there you go. I just love this, a really bonkers idea, but just shows you how weird we're getting right now with AI. Solid state, for want of a better pun, I'll try and make this cool because I think it really is. So fans, if you have a laptop or if you have any piece of kit that probably has the processor turned down because it can't remove the heat from the box quick enough. So if you could remove all the heat from the box, then you could probably run them quicker. So if you look at a gaming rig, for instance, they have cooling that does all of that good stuff. It allows them to run much faster processors, doing much more powerful things. So if you have, say, the latest generation of solid state laptops like a MacBook Air or something like that, then you might notice that there is no fan sound coming from it because it's all solid state. So how do you get rid of the air? Now, those sorts of laptops, by the way, have their processors turned down because they can't get rid of the hot air quick enough. So that's where the AirJet comes in from Furore Systems. I guess that's how you say that. So what it does is it uses a solid state kind of technology to vibrate at a certain frequency, and that drags air through. So if you put 1 watt of power into this thing, it can actually remove 5 watts of heat. So it is also relatively efficient as well. So there you go. You might not actually be using these anytime soon, i.e. unless you're a hardware person, but you might be getting the benefit from these relatively soon as well. So there you go. Thought that was quite interesting. Real-time wind tunnel. So this is, again, I'm probably going to get the name wrong, Florent Germain. Let's say that. Two really cool things going on here. So you're using model tracking or essentially object tracking, and then you're using a particle system to then mimic a wind tunnel effect. So knowing where the wind's coming from, you can then use that model, which is then being sort of modeled in real time and tracked. So there you go. So now what could you use this for? Well, clearly you could use it for anything in automotive or maybe trains or trucks, that sort of thing, airplanes. But if you can then model these things live, then, you know, where you're pitching your tent, where the wind's coming from, you know exactly where to put your barbecue, for instance. So I just really love this. Fairly sure that Florent probably hasn't heard of a tent tracking, but hopefully the next demo will have that in it. Thought that was really cool. Wooden satellites. So this has been going on for a couple of years now. I think they launched some wood into space onto the ISS, I think 2020. Now, magnolia seems to be the wood that survives in space. So there's lots of sort of, you know, changes in temperature and all sorts of particles whizzing about, but magnolia wood is especially stable in space, it turns out. So if you made satellites out of wood, then not only would they be cheaper, but they would also be more environmentally friendly when eventually they burn up in the atmosphere, which is what happens to quite a lot of the low Earth orbit satellites. So there you go. So you might be seeing satellites made of wood, and likewise you've probably seen some of the launches going off recently where things go bang in the sky and they're hugely environmentally destructive. So this might be one step forwards to getting something, splinters of bamboo coming out of the sky, that sort of thing. Meta Quest 3 has been launched. Now clearly this is the next one up from the Meta Quest 2, which is kind of the cheap and affordable headset for everybody. There is also a Meta Quest Pro, which is fiercely expensive but has got all the good stuff on it. This is kind of somewhere in between, to be honest. So the reason there are a little, I'm being a bit vague, is there are not many details about this. So it was kind of rushed out with not many details. What they are saying is, you know, it's got full color pass-through. So pass-through is when you can look through the actual lens, because clearly you're looking through an egg box, but it's got those little two cameras on the outside, allow you to do full color pass-through, so you can do augmented reality really well as virtual reality. The controllers have got, you know, hand tracking and all that sort of stuff on it as well. However, it's also got pancake lenses as opposed to the slightly cranky lenses that are in the Meta Quest 2. If you've used pancake lenses before, they are amazing. But other than that, not really not much known about this. So it's going to be relatively expensive. So nearly $500, and that's also going to translate, broadly speaking, to euros and pounds broadly. So it's not going to be cheap. It might price a lot of people out of experimenting. Now, the reason this is probably maybe a little bit vague is because they're going to launch hopefully going to launch the Apple headset tomorrow. So maybe what's happening is Meta are just getting this out there so that you can think, the Apple one's really expensive. This is a bargain. So who knows? Meta Quest 3. And finally, Google are, you know, they're not having a great time at the moment with search. Obviously, they're starting to trying to catch up with things like ChatGPT when it comes to navigating the internet. However, it seems like generative images have really sort of infiltrated the image search. So if you try and look for Dutch artist, this is Johannes Vermeer, and this is a girl with a pearl earring, I think it's called. I think that's what it's called, correct me if I'm wrong. Basically what you get is the main image is actually an AI generated image. So that's awkward. When you click on the image, it gives you lots of other AI images as well. Now, ironically, it's actually from Hyperallergenic, which is an online newspaper essentially that was also just reporting about a bit of a kerfuffle when the artist was also being basically displayed in museums using AI images as well. So it's doubly weird, this whole thing. So essentially, just be careful when you're Googling things right now, because especially images might also be starting to be pulled in from AI and all that sort of bad stuff, not even good stuff. So there you go. Google, sort it out. Hopefully that was useful. Hopefully it was interesting. If it was, give it a like, share it with somebody. As I said in a previous one, do subscribe, because the way you might see these might be changing coming out soon. But other than that, I will speak to you next week.